Hello, welcome back. All right, so today we are talking about how to write the body of the annotated bibliography summary. And this includes a reading process. And so we're going to look at that reading process and we're going to talk about how to write the information. I'm not going to put it all in one video. You'll have to watch the next video in order to learn a little bit more about how to write those major details with transitions and all of those things and author attributions, all that great stuff. I'm not going to put that all in this video. Today, I'm just going to talk about how to read a scholarly peer-reviewed research article, how to pull details from that article, and then how to gather it so that you can write the major details that are needed for this assignment. Now, let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. All right, here goes. So when you look at this document, it probably looks a lot like what you've researched and what you've pulled up based on your topic. We're looking at an article entitled Equity in Online Learning. The first thing you want to do when you get something like this is to make sure that you understand what the title is communicating. And as said previously, you want to, for your summary thesis, make sure that you're including language from that title so that you can ensure that your topic is clearly defined in the summary thesis. You got to connect these two things together, right? So in this case, you would want to ask a question of any word in that title that may be difficult for you to understand, or maybe it's just not a part of your everyday vocabulary. In this case, maybe the word equity. So I would ask a question, what is equity? And then I'd ask a second question, how does it relate to online learning? In order for me to come up with a summary thesis statement. And I read the abstract really in order to make sure that I understood what this meant. And if I couldn't really get the meaning out of that, I would probably look up the term equity to make sure that I understand what it means in general. And obviously it has a root equi, which is going to be like equal. And so I may be able to use some context clues to figure out that that means, creating an equal opportunity for learning in an online environment. I may figure that part out on my own. And then I'd read this abstract and I will come up with what I believe the main idea or the summary thesis is for this article. So that would be my step one. And I would write that down as my summary thesis. But when it comes to major details, you want to take the same approach, but you're going to approach it from a slightly different point of view. For the major details, it involves the reading skill of scanning, right? And that's a pre-reading idea. So you scan the document to see how it's set up. In this case, we have these wonderful subtopics. Anytime you see an article that has subtopics, you've found gold, because these are pretty easy to summarize because the author has taken time to tell you what they thought was important. They pulled those major points out and they've sectioned them for you. So you want to make sure that you go through the same process that we did with the title, which is a topic. You want to apply that same questioning skill to the subtopic. So for instance, in this case, you have research on online courses in undergraduate education. That is the subtopic. Now, I would want to take this subtopic and question it. You question using the journalist's questions, and I'm not sure if you know them, but if you don't, here goes. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. If you ask any of those 6 questions to any topic, you're going to be able to get some information out of it. You really want to pick whichever word best suits what you want to know. Let's face it, these long articles are not necessarily something we want to read with coffee every morning. We would rather read a popular source like the New York Times, or maybe online news, or maybe even hip hop news like Complex. I don't know. Rolling Stone. But we probably don't want to wake up in the morning and read a research article because they're a little bit more difficult to read, mainly because of the type of language that's used in this type of article. So you want to find quick ways to be able to summarize these thoughts without having to read every single thing. So in this case, the author has done a lot of the legwork for you. All you have to do is just ask the right question. So if I had research on online courses in undergraduate education, I may ask the question of what kind of research? Why did they do research? When did they do this research? How did they do this research? You see, each time I turn the kaleidoscope of questions, I come up with a new thing to be interested in. My goal is to ask the question, and then the next thing I want to do is to figure out the answer, right? So in this article, they cheated a little bit for me, which is why I picked this article for instructional purposes, because they've asked a question, which means they probably answered it in this information. But let's say that this wasn't here and you just had this question. What is online research in undergraduate education? You would find this information by looking in familiar places. You know, back when you were in grade school, they told you to always read the first sentence of a paragraph to try to find the main idea. When you have a research article, they absolutely are trying to communicate information to you. So it's highly likely that they will put the answer to whatever you ask as a question, if you ask the question that they had in mind, that is, right here in the first line. So this answers what, in terms of what research on online courses did they do for undergraduate education? They start off by saying it takes many forms, and then they explain exactly what that is. You see? Voila. So now I have my first major detail, and I didn't necessarily have to read the whole thing. I was just able to figure it out. Maybe I ask a different question and it's not answered in the first line. Maybe I'll read 2 more lines, but I'm not going to read too deeply into all of it, mainly because I just want the major detail. So I'll go down to the end of the paragraph and see exactly what's there. Why? Because when authors write informative text, they put main ideas at the beginning and at the end of paragraphs, because they don't really want you to have to search for what they're trying to communicate. So they make it pretty easy. So if you have a subtopic, you probably can find the answer to your questions at the beginning or at the end. If you have multiple paragraphs under a subtopic, then you'll go through the same process. Maybe you'll come up with 2 details that answer this question, right? And then, of course, you'll look at the beginning, and then you will also look at the end. I can find it. There it is. All right. And you keep going with this process till you get to the end of the document. Now, that's if you want every single detail that's in here. Say you want to cover the whole thing and you want all of the details. Well, you would have in this article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it just keeps going. This will be a lot of content to put in a body of an annotated bibliography summary. So you may not want all of it. Instead, you may want to pick the ones that are most relevant to what you're writing, right? So you want to pick and choose, even within the subtopics or subheadings, what you want to use, all right? So let's just say, though, that you don't have either any subheadings or you have very few. You also could look at other things like tables. Maybe you have a document that doesn't have any, and all they give you are tables and pictures to consider. Well, this table gives you a caption and it tells you A, what's in it, and then B, where it comes from. You can make a major detail out of this. You may have to figure out why they would put, this table about teachers that reported live contact over 7 days. You may have to figure that out, but think about it. That major detail is right there for you, and they made a chart and they made a table because they wanted you to see it. This is the same thing with pictures. Take a look at this. Now, this is an infographic, sure, but it still gives you a caption just like it's a picture. If you have a picture on your article or in your article, then you can use the information from the caption and the details in the picture and explain it to your audience as a major detail. That's another way that you can write major details. And obviously, you still have your subtopics that you can continue with. So there are multiple ways that you can approach this concept of writing major details. But if you notice, if you pick an article or articles that have subtopics, a lot of your work is done for you. And that is a quick and easy way to know and learn more about your article without having to read the entire thing. Last thing, at the end of this article and at the end of most research articles, you'll see something that says conclusions. Now, the conclusion statement is the next part of the research article in terms of communicating this information in your annotated bibliography summary. You have to write a conclusion statement. And here's just a quick tip on reading. If you go to the end of the article, find something that says conclusions, it may say results, outcome, findings, anything that indicates that it's the end. Once you figure out the main idea of that, which probably is going to be right here, that first sentence again, because it's probably going to be something that the author wants to communicate right away. You can summarize this information, and now you have your conclusion statement as well, using essentially the same method that you did to find your major details. If for some reason you don't have this conclusion, marker, then all you have to do is go to the very end of the article, read the last paragraph, start with the very first sentence, and you already know how this goes. Go to then the very last sentence to see if they have given you everything you need in order to talk about how the article ends, right? So that's all. It's very easy to do this process. It does not take long, and it is really, really an interesting way to learn more about your topic. And that is the end of this video. Check in for the next one to see exactly how to write this statement. See you next time.